everyone. Today with the Flight Level Special, we have a special guest, Andreas Rein. And he's not only the flight level guide, but also flight levels coach. And for so many times we got questions, what does it mean to be flight levels guide? What does it mean to flight levels coach? Wonder no more. He will tell you more. Beautiful rhyme. That's a great start for the conversation. So Andreas, could you please introduce yourself to our community?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Justyna. Thank you for having me here. I'm more than happy, and I'm more than happy to discuss anything around flight levels. My name is Andreas Rein, and I am working as an organizational developer. Let's turn it that way. So I have a background in software development, come from traditional project management, which I did as a freelance consultant for 10 years. And then I found around 2010 my love for Lean Six Sigma. So I'm working with statistical methods. And then I came to Kanban in, I don't know, the early 2012 or 13, something like that. I found out that Kanban is pretty much the same as Six Sigma, but it's more for living people. So you don't need to have
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean?
You don't need to be a statistician. Yeah, you can do it empirically. You do it by moving post-its and watching and finding out about your work system instead of calculating it, which you do pretty much in Six Sigma. And at that time around, I met Klaus, and I heard for the first time about the flight levels, and I was totally transfixed because this was so perfect for me. He used this idea of Kanban to model a whole organization, to model the whole universe of an enterprise, and that was so fascinating that I stood with Klaus, and that's why I became one of the first flight level coaches and flight level guides a couple of years ago. And this is my topic. I'm working with it. And I work as a consultant, as I said, for different companies, implementing agile strategies basing on flight levels. And I provide also flight level trainings in order to qualify the people to do flight levels.
Yeah, oh my God, I have so many questions right now to what
you have all the time you need.
Okay, so maybe the first one, because you said what made you fall in love with Kanban, and then you briefly touched upon what made you fall in love with flight levels, that you could actually model the whole organization. But could you just say from your perspective, what is the biggest pain that flight levels is actually solving?
The biggest pain flight levels is solving is the problem, the challenge with agile interaction. When we think of work systems, we model them, we build them, we use methods, but we never really think about how to connect them. And this is one of the biggest learnings I had in the last couple of years, because this is the trouble most companies get into. It's not the method they use on the operational level. It's how to connect these methods to each other, how to make sure that the information is flowing through the organization. This is where flight levels comes in, because this is one of the main topics flight levels are modeling. That was so fascinating. And as I said, I was totally transfixed because it's as easy as Kanban, but it addresses a big challenge, a huge problem many companies have. Whenever I talk about flight levels, this is where the people say, yeah, you know our company. Have you been here before? Why do you know what our problems are? Because this is the problem in many companies. They build agile islands, they build methodology islands, but they are unable to connect them. And this is flight level for me.
I love what you said, interaction islands, because that's definitely what we see, and I think that's the best picture that you can get from Klaus's book Rethinking Agile. I think one of the picture was actually those agile islands itself.
Definitely. You have different islands with teams, but in many enterprises and companies, they forgot to build the ports and they forgot to build the bridges, so they're disconnected from the rest of the organization. The more agile and the more Scrum and the more Kanban they do, the more they get disconnected from the rest, from what the rest of the companies do, and they even build up a separate culture of their own. So you have a different organizational culture, and this is toxic if they're not connected, because they cannot work together. And that raises conflict.
Yeah. But I have sometimes this feeling when I go to the bigger organization, I feel like inception, there is like the organization inside of the organization inside of the organization. And as you said, there are no bridges. Okay, so then moving a little bit forward, because you mentioned, and that's also true, that you are one of the first guides and flight level coaches as well. So maybe let's start from the guides. Who is the flight level guide? What does it mean?
The flight level guide is the person who knows flight level in theory well and good enough, and has enough experience in having implemented flight level systems that he or she can qualify others to become flight level professionalists. So the guide is the trainer, the personal coach, and the workshop facilitator who transfers the knowledge to the people that they can use flight levels on their own, that they can implement flight level systems on their own, that they can analyze, organize, and implement the systems in their own organizations. So the guide is the person who qualifies.
Okay. So if I run a big enterprise and I think like, flight level guide is someone that I need, and I contact you, what happens next? Like how you start a collaboration as a flight level guide with this organization?
Oh, that's very easy. And this is pretty much the same as I would do when I work as a coach. The first question is always, what's your problem? And then you hear stories and experiences. But when you nail it down, often the people don't know what their real problem is. They do not see the trouble they have in disconnected teams, and you have to lead them to there to make them understand that this is the trouble in their organization. But the first thing I do is always clarify with them, what is the problem and what do you want to reach? So when we talk about agile or flight level initiatives, we automatically talk about change in some way. We need to reorganize, we need to change the organization, we need to build workflows, whatever. And change always causes pain. I'm very sorry to say so. And you need to be sure that the pain you're getting into is worth going through. So the benefit you receive should be higher than the pain that you receive. And you will normally receive both. So we need to identify what is the benefit for you to do something. And then should you do it or shouldn't you? Yeah.
Okay. So my enterprise, it's called Happy Islands. Yeah. And you are, you got inspired. You got me inspired.
I'd like to buy a ticket to go there, please.
Yeah. So then we identify what's the problem. You come into the organization. Do you bring there the flight levelers training? If yes, which kind of the training you would bring? With what kind of people would you work in this organization in order to help them?
In the perfect world, which I'm unfortunately not living in, but
it's Happy Islands. It's Happy Islands Enterprise.
Okay. So having understood what they really want to achieve, let's say they have, I don't know, their innovational power is not high enough. Their development cycles are too long. Time to market is too long. Whatever. All these problems companies might have. The very first step would be thinking it through. That means you need to identify the people who are able to implement change in the organization and the people who want to drive it. So you need to you need to accompany yourself with the people in the internals, in the organization, who want to go the way or the path with you. And With them, you can make a plan. You can build, we call it a flight level systems architecture. You can build up an early draft of an architecture of what the organization is supposed to look like. So how should the organization be set up? How should the workflow be designed in order to solve the problem you have? And then you can iteratively start to implement it. That means you provide training, you qualify the people, and ideally you implement coaches within the company in order to provide the knowledge to the last corner of the company. And that's why I call it the perfect world, because in many cases it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But if it was me to decide, I would go this way. Let's find the architecture. Let's find the roadmap, how to go on, qualify the people who can implement that, and then qualify coaches within the organization in order to spread the word around the happy island.
Yes. Okay, great. So that sounds like a understandable, I would say, like the blueprint of the role of the flight levels guide in the organization. So now on the opposite, maybe not on the opposite side, but also there is the role of the flight levels coach. And maybe the first question is like, how do you become the flight levels coach?
First of all, you need to take the trainings as well. You need to know flight levels very well. You need to understand it. You need to know what you can do with flight levels, where flight levels are very effective, and you need to have experiences in implementing flight levels as well. And then you should join the flight level coaching program, where you receive the education to become a coach, where you get a qualified coach. Then you are a coach on the paper. Then you have your documents saying you're a flight level coach. Honestly, at this point in time, you have done already a lot, and you have gained a lot of experience. But you become a coach. You become the coach by coaching, by going into the organization, into your organizational parts, helping people, helping them to develop, helping them to identify their spots of where to implement change, where to implement flight levels, and helping them to run the flight level systems when they are built up. So I think coaching has a lot to do with experience. You need to do that. And so you need to love it, and then you need to do it. And some education would be very helpful.
And I think like also what is interesting about this program itself, and I didn't know it at the beginning, but because when I saw that Klaus, now they are doing flight levels coaching, I was like, oh my God, I have to sign up for this class. It's something new. It's something great. But then I was like, I should have probably already more experience with flight levels. Oh, I should have more experience with coaching, because I think it makes sense actually if you already come with your package. You don't have to have like 20, 30 years of experience, but actual implementations of flight levels, I think it's a key in the program. Or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Flight levels coach means you're coaching people to securely move in a flight level environment. And therefore, you need to know the environment very well. You need to know the systems very well. You need to have attended the trainings, the flight level flow design and the flight level systems architecture training and so on, in order to understand the technology. Let's turn it that way. But in the flight levels coaching educational program, it goes much further. So it's more about on how to implement certain or how to help the people implement the solutions for certain problems which can be found in the market. It's not the general, it's really the specific. And on the other part, it's the coaching part, which is also taught very well by Ziggy Kaltenecker, which is about how to do the proper communication and how to build the communication around that around the flight level system. When we say, or when I say, the key point in flight levels is the agile interaction. Agile interaction often has to do a lot with communication, And therefore, if you're an educated flight levels coach, you need to be very, trained in education and education design and information design. And this is a big part of the Flight Levels Coach educational program as well.
So if you could say like your aha moments from that program, what would you say?
Whew.
We
so
don't
many
have a
years
day.
ago, I can't remember. No. I'm not sure if there were many aha moments, because the training, the educational program was very practical. So we really did role plays where we try to deep dive into certain situations and thinking through the questions of possible clients and acting to be a client who's receiving the coaching or the consulting or whatever. So thinking flight levels from the perspective of the client, of the company, that was very, very helpful. And there were many aha moments.
Okay.
You never do that in your training. When you go to a flight levels training, you already know about it, you know what you want to achieve, and now you want to learn the technology behind it. But the situation for the clients or for the mandates is completely different. They don't even know if flight levels really helps to solve their problems. And having these conversations and having these critical conversations as well was a very, very useful practice in the coach program. That was very helpful. You never do that outside a program like that.
And I also think that the type of the people, like the mix of the people that take the classes, their experience, like you don't learn only from the teachers, from the workshop leader, from the training leader, but you just have like, the room full of experienced people who face so many different problems and scenarios.
Definitely. I mean, Klaus has implemented maybe hundreds of flight level systems, but he definitely has not seen everything in the world, because he's only one person. But when you go to a class like this, you have, 20 experienced people with their own backgrounds, with their own stories, with their own experiences, with their own knowledge, and bringing that all together and sharing this knowledge. And this is something which I really appreciate when I think about the flight levels community in general, the guides and the coaches community. The experiences are shared. So it's really people who love what they're doing and they like to talk about it. And when someone has a question, it's just asked openly and someone provides an answer, and then the discussion starts. So this is a very, very open community, and it's very fruitful to be a part of that. And it starts in the coaching program.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also true, like for me, because I met Klaus, I think 5 years ago in Krakow on the ACE conference that I organized. And since that day, like I keep coming back, It's like boomerang. Okay. Is there anything, Andreas, that you think that the community or people who don't know about flight levels coaching or flight levels guides that they should know, like, and a final message that you would say?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, really, this is important, because when we think of flight levels, it's I mean, it's lightweighted. It's about post-its or digital cards moving around the board, but you also have this part of analysis, of measuring progress and how to do that. That can be very scientific. I mean, you've had a conversation with Troy McGannis, and I mean, it can be as complex as you want to if you talk to him. Yeah, well, and I think this can be scary for some people, but for me, this flight level universe is really it's pure fun. It's for the first time in my professional career, in my professional life, that I have a methodology in the back where I say it's fun to work with. It's frustrating if the people don't understand it or don't want to understand it. But from my perspective, it's really fun to work with it, because it's so practical. You can just start. You set up your first flight levels board. You set up your first flight items on the board, and you start working with it, and you learn from day one, and you do that as a guide, you do that as a coach, and you do that as a practitioner as well, and you can do that together. And when you do that, you always have a group of people who enjoy what they are doing, and this is something that is, well, maybe not in the official curriculum of the flight levels courses, but it's worth mentioning it. It's really, really fun, and it's an enjoyable experience. And therefore, if anybody's interested in flight levels and in flow-based systems and building enterprise models and whatever, and you're interested also in the fun aspect, you're right with flight levels.
Oh my God. That was just the perfect, like the punchline and the finish line for this interview. So thank you, Andreas, very, very much for that. I think the fun aspect and the testimonial by itself was our conversation. I have so much courage that I would even say that. So thank you very much. I'm sure that everyone who listened to it now will have a little bit deeper understanding of what does it mean to be the guide and what does it mean to be the coach. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for having me.